Welcome to episode 12 of Soul Flow Radio with the Feel-Osophy Brothers. My name is Josh, and my co-host here is VJ. And today we have a very special episode for you where we're doing things a little bit differently. For those of you who have stuck with us through the first 10 episodes of Soul Flow Radio, you'll notice that our format has changed a little bit. We're doing things a little bit differently, and we'd love your feedback around what you think about these changes that we've implemented. So definitely get in our comments, in our messages. Let us know. We'd love to hear from you. This is just as much for us as it is for you, so you matter. Your voice truly matters. VJ, how are you today, bro?
Doing so good, my man. Doing so good. So excited for this new, fresh episode.
Likewise. Before we jump into it, why don't we try something a little different? What's one thing you're grateful for today?
My health. My health, my health, my health.
Yeah.
You?
You know what? I'd have to say just the fact that I woke up today. It means my story just isn't done, and I'm so, so grateful to know that.
Oh, well said. Well said.
So, I want to jump into our question today because I think it's quite an expansive one. I think that we could go in a lot of different directions with it. So, all right, here we are. So, something that I've really noticed as I've gotten older, as I've gotten to witness people my age become parents, people older than me become grandparents, and beyond that, you start to hear the stories that happen, the stories that are shared in front of the kids, maybe the ones that aren't. And something that really shines through a lot. I do see people really work on it to prevent it from shining through. But I do see that what happens quite often is there's a lot of resentment, towards children for the life that they get to live that their parent didn't get to live. Now, if we take, say, for example, a family who has moved from another country and now they have a first generation who's growing up here, the opportunities, things like that will be very different. Maybe the life path that they could take will be different because the cultural influences and things like that are just different from where they originated from. So I notice that this really does create a lot of resentment and tension within that relationship. It's kind of like this hidden layer that does exist within the parent-child relationship at times, because,
Mm.
at the end of the day, you're getting to do the things that I really wish I could have done in my life, but I became a parent and here you are, and now you get to do it. So, I really want to crack that open and see what your thoughts are around that, bro.
Man, okay, so you're telling me around you're witnessing a lot of parents essentially express in their narratives in their talk almost a resentment towards their children because the children are getting to do things they weren't getting to do, haven't got to do it. Whoa, man. um that blows my mind, man. I mean, I don't disagree. I've heard it as well.
Yeah.
Whew, so much to say. I like, okay, so first of all, like, I think I've said this in one of our previous episodes, is like when we bring a child to life, we
Mhm.
don't ask the child before it's born, before conception, hey, I'm thinking of bringing you to life. Life is full of suffering and difficult decisions, and you got to pay the bills one day. Do you want this life?
Yeah.
We don't get a chance to ask the soul that or whatever, right? And so we bring this child to this planet. I hate to say it, most often than not for selfish reasons. Like,
Mhm.
I want babies,
Right.
without actually understanding what that journey actually entails, and I want a nice family, and so that my friends can look at me and be like, I have a family, and I've done check, I'm supposed
Yeah.
to have a family check, right? And so first and foremost, it's like, you did this. Like, for those of you who are like feeling resentful that your children are, living the life that you didn't get to do, you did it. You brought them to this planet, and so
Yeah.
the resentment, in my humble opinion, cannot be towards them, you know and you raised them a certain way, and you brought them up, and you chose a certain country and a certain society and a certain schooling system, and all of those things. For what reason?
Mhm.
And so, my goodness, the first thing I want to do is point a finger at yourself, parent. It's like,
Yeah.
why? The second thing to me that's mind blowing is like, why is the fact that your child is shining a trigger for you? Like, the fact that your child is doing things that your mind believes is amazing and that you couldn't do. The fact that your child is experiencing it, what is it in you that's essentially broken that triggers you instead of giving you immense joy? You
Yeah.
know, like, let's just say I'm not a parent, but let's just say I love my friend, or I love my brother, or I love my sister, or I love my spouse or partner. If they are doing something that is making them happy, if I truly love them, then that should make me happy. It's like vicariously living their joy and feeling that joy within me. So,
Yeah.
like, the big question I have is, dude, what's happening? Like, what is broken in there that you are actually resentful of your own child shining and laughing and doing a good thing? That's what I'll
Mm.
start with. What does that feel for you, and what do you have to
I
say to it?
I mean I would say a lot of the same stuff you said there, man. To me, it's just confusing because it's this weird. When I see it happen, it makes me zoom out, right? And it makes me think about, okay, what are the players in this scenario? How do they operate in other settings? So, for example, if they're feeling this resentment towards a child, do they feel competitive in their marriage? You know, do they feel like, are they a go for the jugular, crush everybody else in the boardroom?
Huh.
You know, like what is the personality type, right? Like what is
Mhm.
happening? What's the full picture of you? And I think that when it happens, the best thing that I've found is almost to hold yourself back from interrupting them, because they're going to tell you a whole story in a few words. And so much of that story is actually going to be the things that they don't say, right?
Mhm.
So to me, I think that what we're seeing a lot of, and a lot of people are echoing this sentiment, especially people from our community, I feel, being the brown, Indian, whatever you want to call it, community. It's kind of just like we're growing up at a time now where a lot of us aren't having kids. And we're getting into these conversations because now we're not afraid. We're not backing down from, these older elders within the family. Oh, aren't you? You're getting old. Like you should have a kid by now. All these things. Like we're doing what at one point I think would have been considered back talk and disrespect and all this kind of stuff. But we're pushing back. We're saying you didn't give me any kind of example that I want to replicate. Like, you're not. You talk under your breath all the time about how much you hate your existence. What about
Mhm.
that makes me want to replicate that? Right? So I
Wow.
think that
So well said.
what we're coming up against here is they're able to now sit with their own frustration and anger about it because they decide, or they made the choice at whatever point to become parents, whether that's caving to pressure or complete free will, whatever we want to call it. And so now they're getting to see other people live differently. And now it's not like, oh, wait until you're 65, wait until your kids graduate and go to university or whatever, till you start living your life. Right. I think they're getting to see more of us do that, actually love lives that we were living in real time. And I think that what that does is it outlines for them all the things they tried to suppress, push under the carpet, like, oh, I resented culture. I resented what my parents told me to do. I resented all of these kind of things. But it was kind of chalked up to, oh, this is just life. But no, it's not, because now they get a chance to see more people living life differently than what it used to look like. So more
Yeah.
people are connecting with what sets my soul on fire versus all I'm here to do is procreate. And I think that
Mhm.
that's causing a very big amount of resentment and potential for healing. There's potential for healing. Let's not lose sight of that. But it's
Yeah.
first, we understand how this goes. First, the volcano has to erupt, right?
Mhm.
And then we're going to sort out the mess afterwards. But that's kind of what I feel is kind of at the root of it.
Mhm.
They're like, shoot, I really wish that I could have followed my own advice versus cave to the pressure of something else, be it society or family or culture, whatever it is.
Yeah, man, beautifully said. I really want to emphasize the point you bring up about this is an opportunity to heal. And I think it is a little bit more, I mean, speaking as brown people, it is a bit more acute, um, culturally, because, I'm from a background where, like, you either you are a good son or a good offspring doing good if you're an engineer, a doctor, or a lawyer. I think this is quintessential, like,
Yeah.
cliche as heck, right? So it's like, if you're not, then what happened? What happened in your upbringing that you're a chef or
Yeah.
or you're like a music teacher. It's like, what happened? Oh, he couldn't do the good hard thing,
Mhm.
and so it's an interesting uh paradox almost, where the entire narrative in the South Asian subcontinent is, when am I going to be able to migrate to the UK or the US and or Canada, and get away from this poverty or whatever it is,
Mhm.
and the moment you migrate there, it's almost like, I'm an immigrant, like it's almost like the mind or the heart isn't ready for what you've signed up for, because in the West, yeah, children will talk back and will question authority and will say, well, yeah, you're asking me to do this, but why, and back home I could be, as an adult, be like, don't question your elders, just do it, it's bad
Yeah.
manners, but here, no, no, actually I gotta form an answer to this question as to why I'm asking my child to do this. And so I can use that opportunity to either heal and be like, why am I asking my child to do this? And I don't even know the answer to it. And when I'm asked the question, I feel triggered. Like, that is an opportunity to heal, you know?
Mhm.
Or the other option B is like, oh, I resent my child because, they're getting to ask the questions to me. I couldn't ask my dad or my mom these challenging questions. And so there's a lot to look at. And it kind of brings me back to this general subject of, again, I bring this up almost at nausea, is self-love and self-confidence and self-worth. I think we're
Mhm.
all responsible for that, and so as an individual and a parent, if I have a healthy amount of that, I won't take it personally that my child has asked me this question and be like, oh wow, that's interesting, perhaps there's a bit of wisdom in my son or daughter that I don't have, that I'm getting to learn, that
Yeah.
comes from achieving something. And this other thing, like, we have to remember that there's this societal narrative that at 18 we apparently know it all. Like,
Yeah.
we are now adults and now we can drive and now we can vote. That there's this false sense of like, you now know,
Yeah.
now you are ready for the big thing about life. But the truth is that at my age, I'm still 15 in many aspects of my psyche and my upbringing, and where I need to be in my journey. And so most parents are still learning and are still kids and are still, those little kids that like are still falling and faltering. And so, in defense of the parents that are feeling animosity, I just want to extend some compassion. Is like, you're also just a kid right now, dealing with triggers. It just so happens your child is actually triggering you,
Yeah.
but use the opportunity to heal, man. Like,
Yeah.
use this opportunity to evolve and to come come at a place of learning.
Yeah. And that's a wonderful point, man. For parents, right? Like it's such an opportunity. And what I see happen, especially when the parents happen to be relatively younger, right? So say when I say that, I mean like say before 25, right? What I find happens sometimes is if they didn't necessarily do the planning around I want to have a child right now, what I find is that there's this kind of arrested development that happens often
Yeah.
where and for those who are new to the concept, arrested development is essentially you stay stuck at that age per, like beyond that point essentially. So if I had a child that's say 24 and I'm 36 now, arrested development would be like I'm still operating like I'm 24 essentially,
Mm.
right? So I find that we kind of get locked in there, and what happens then is, depending on if we became a parent out of surprise or what, there's all these different elements that impact the energy that we then bring into the parenthood, which is what we spoke about on a recent episode, right? And so I think that we have to just kind of step back and be like, we can't be simultaneously cheering for and rooting against our kids. You know what I mean? Like I see it happen, and I've sat there in rooms with my family, and I really wanted my head to just explode because I'm like, you guys do not understand the how opposite push pull you guys are in what you're saying right now,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
And so I
yeah.
think we need to like examine that and understand what it is that we're trying to provide to these kids. Are we trying to provide them the freedom, right, to do what they want because that's what they're doing? Are we providing the freedom to do the things that we didn't get to do because we became parents? Okay, well, then be very clear about that and say it out loud so you hear how ridiculous that sounds, right?
Mhm.
You know, there was a post by a guy that I saw that was shared with me. I think Suki shared it with me. And he was talking about parenthood from the perspective of, you know, when we become parents, oftentimes what we're doing is we're trying to basically bring to the earth a younger version of ourselves so that we could parent that younger version the way wish we were parented. So it's not even about that kid anymore. Much like you
Mhm.
said, it's a very selfish
Mhm.
endeavor.
Mhm.
So
Exactly.
it's like let's break out the good old why ladder, right? And let's
Mhm.
be like, why am I feeling this way towards my child right now? They got to
Mhm.
graduate, they got their doctorate. I didn't get to do that. You know, why
Mhm.
am I not feeling this bliss? And understanding that we don't just need to feel purely one thing. We can feel like, you know, it would have been nice if I could have done that as well. But it doesn't
Mhm.
mean that we need to express resentment or some type of negative energy towards the people who get to, right?
Mhm.
We can accept that within ourselves because sometimes even just saying, yeah, you know what? Actually, I had that aspiration for myself. Sometimes we can actually bring some healing to ourselves in that moment because we're no longer just shoving a desire under the rug. We're openly acknowledging it, right?
Mhm.
And now when we openly acknowledge it, we can decide for ourselves what we want to do with that information. Do we want to act on it and follow through on it? Or do we just want to sit here and keep complaining about it? Right? So, you know, I feel like those are tools that we can loop into this whole conversation, you know, to really help bring about the real underlying information that exists within the opportunity.
I love it. In fact, I'll say when we witness our offspring do the thing that we couldn't do, as a parent, you should be proud. You should be proud of the fact that you're stacking and evolving. Your lineage is growing. Your
Mhm.
lineage is not stagnant in its arrested development. Like
Yeah,
it is actually growing, and be proud of the fact that you created a scenario and a situation for your child that they could do the thing that you couldn't, and take joy in that.
yeah,
Like that's your celebration, that's your win, not the experience of whatever they're going through. It's like they're going to have their own version of it when if and when they choose to become parents.
yeah,
Another thing that I'll say is another point that you touched on is that, man, I'm glad I didn't have a child at 30, because I know, let's say I have a child now in the next few years, I know for a fact that emotionally speaking, physically different conversation, emotionally speaking, I am better equipped to
mm,
not take things personally, to walk this talk that I'm talking. Now, reality might hit me in a different way, but I do feel better equipped to be more humble, to look at my child as a teacher. So I will say that. Another thing I want to just add is that we're not parents, so we don't always understand the reality of the
yeah,
fatigue, the physical, the emotional fatigue that's involved in raising a child and what toll that takes.
absolutely.
That does not excuse it. That doesn't mean that you can hold animosity to your child and that's justified. I'm just bringing a light of compassion to, like, hey, I don't know that reality, but it is important that uh, that you do take an opportunity to look at that. Um, we one day we will, if that's written in our cards, be faced with these kinds of constant triggers. Now your child is like a version of you that's maybe not, maybe definitely different, but it
Yeah,
is a version of you and that child is going to bring up all the things like, oh my god, Vijay, I am so patient, you are so impatient, you're so
yeah,
impatient. you know like, don't take it out on the child, like, look at your impatience.
right.
So I think that the disclaimer there is that we don't entirely know the equation, but I know there's truth in what we're saying. Like, we want to
Absolutely.
evolve, you know.
Yeah, and you know what? By all means, I mean we never try to come across as know-it-alls. We're lifelong learners, right? We're just speaking
Yeah.
from this unique perspective that we've been given in this lived experience, right? And I think that there's value in that because, you know, we're sharing the side of guys who have thought about becoming parents and haven't yet, right? So,
Yeah.
that might be unique for you to get that kind of perspective, to all of our listeners out there. So, even for the
Yeah.
folks, maybe you just don't have a space where you can explore this, and hearing
Yeah.
this discussed might actually prompt some things within you in your own self-discovery around your feelings towards it, right? I think
Yeah.
that, as I've gotten older and been on my own, sort of healing journey and all that kind of jazz, for me, like, I start to really think about it, and tapping into an exercise we referenced in a previous episode around whose voice are you hearing that in, right? It's like I have to make sure that it's not just me here living out all the unlived experiences on behalf of everyone who came before me, right? I can't do that. That's just
Mhm.
not what I'm here for, right? It's not
Mhm.
to
Love
complete
it.
what other people didn't get to, right? It's to
Yeah.
do what I'm here to do. And
Yeah.
so I think, like, when we understand that, we understand the real message behind what we're communicating when we're expressing resentment or whatever it is. If we step back, in all likelihood, what I've seen in those moments where it's been expressed, say, towards a child, and I have a connection to the network, so I know, like, one generation above that in some scenarios.
Mhm.
It's like, okay, if I piece this information that you've all so willingly shared with me together, I see that what you're doing to this younger one here is what that older one did to you, and you know no different. So now we just keep passing this stuff along. Um, so I think
Mhm.
it's really a curiosity about human nature that we need to have, right? And our own preconceived notions and predispositions that set us up to turn on one another in this way,
Mhm.
right? Because,
Mhm.
like, how powerful and at the same time destructive is it when even the harmony within a home, the people who should be viewed as, not even cheerleaders I need to check in with, now
Yeah.
you're at odds with that. You have to overcome that, right? That impacts
Unreal.
us, tremendously, right? Because that, our family home is typically where we imagine our first safe space. And if we
Yeah.
don't feel that safety there, like, it's setting us up in different ways further down the line. So I think we need to be very
Yeah.
mindful of this. And for as exhausted as all of us are, parent not, all that kind of stuff, we need to understand that if we don't tap into these things now, time is just going. Time won't
Mhm.
stop for you to sit down and examine this. You need to make a
Mhm.
very conscious effort to do this. It's an
Mhm.
intentional break in your schedule, much like that work meeting with a prospect who might turn into a commission or not. Just the same way you'd mark off your calendar for an hour and travel 2 hours to get there and 2 hours back on potential. We need to schedule these things because these things are also important. Check ins with our folks, peer evaluations, evaluation of self, right? We
Yeah.
always wait for these corporate performance reviews. How about you get proactive and understand your own different vulnerabilities, right? Like,
Yeah.
let's give energy to that.
Yeah. Yeah. Beautiful, brother. Let me ask you this. Do you think, I know what my answer is, do you think it's healthy for a family to have a family therapist where parents go in as maybe as individuals, maybe a parent goes in with a child, not when there's problems, like once every 2, 3 months, just to sort of check in. Like, what do you think about that idea where such conversations can come up where a child can be like, you know what, I always feel like you're in competition with me, dad, or like, or son, like these things that you're doing, I won't lie to you, man, like the inner child in me is like feeling jealous, like what do you feel about that kind of a practice?
I think it's great. And, I want to offer this disclaimer, nothing against the field, right? But I don't think that person per se has to wear the hat of therapist, right? I think having an outside individual outside of that primary ecosystem where, a party who's not necessarily invested in siding with any of these individuals can actually hear
Mhm.
them all, because
Yeah.
that's what we need someone else to receive all the messages that are incoming and then share
Yeah.
that back to us, right? Because,
Yeah.
oftentimes, like we've talked about, right, sometimes we miss the message because we're too hung up on the messenger, right? And
Yeah.
having that neutral party, be it a therapist, be it somebody else, whatever trusted practitioner, individual, whatever you want to call it, having that is important, because everyone
Yeah.
needs to actually have a space where they release all the stuff they're feeling inside,
Yeah.
right? Even if there's no credibility to it, you need to let it
Yeah.
out. Like, this
Yeah.
thing will eat you alive if you don't have a space to let things out. So
Yeah.
I think we need to acknowledge that. And I think it would be a fantastic idea if more of us embrace that on a proactive basis.
Yeah.
Like I see it kind of like what I see happen when I believe, I could be wrong. If I am, please someone correct me. I think it's for Roman Catholics. Before the couple gets married, they spend time in the church. They have sort of this peek inside their relationship type of thing. And, oftentimes people are like, well, you guys aren't even married yet. What problems do you have? Like, why are you doing this?
Mm,
No, there's something to that method. They're being
mm,
proactive. They're trying to understand what hurdles might be on the horizon that we need to make a conscious effort to prepare for, right?
mhm.
It's not
It's
a
like,
just off the cuff type of thing. This is life.
yeah, yeah. I love it, man. Couple of things. Yeah, the whole idea of being proactive and preventative as opposed to reactive, which is the entire, I mean, it's becoming global now, but I would say the entire Western medical system is like when the injury happens, go treat it then, as opposed to be holistic and try and avoid it and preventative. So I really agree with you. And it's funny, you're like, you're saying it doesn't have to be a therapist. Like, dare we say the T word in our brown
Right?
community and like to our previous generation? Like, it's like, no, I don't need therapy. It's like, yeah, yeah, we all do. It's not like therapy doesn't mean you have a problem. It literally just means a person, like you're saying, an unbiased person that is just witnessing you speak. And it's like, most of the realization happens as the words come out of my mouth, and it's like, oh, that's
Yeah.
what I sound like. Okay, I'm a jackass or whatever,
Mhm.
and I think that isn't possible when you're saying it to your child or to your spouse, but together maybe to a third party. So it doesn't have to be a therapist at all, and I highly highly encourage that, especially to the previous generation, like the older generation, and for us too, man, for us to learn as well. And just another thing I'll share is, you know, if you're thinking about having a child, really ask the question, why do you want to have a child? Like,
Mhm.
really, why do you want to have a child? Because it's just the thing to do at that age, because you're trying to save your marriage, because you want cute babies and to kiss cute cheeks, because that's not forever, they'll grow. Like, what is the real root reason as to why you want to have a child? Is it
Yeah.
nature, just you want to procreate? So I think it's super important to dive into that question. I'd like to answer that just for the sake of, because I want to express it. And if you feel like answering it, you can as well. Not to say that you're wanting to have a child, but if I am to have a child, my reason is pretty clear. You know, the world in its current state needs more awake, elevated vibration human beings. Let's call it
Mhm.
good human beings. It's subjective, right? But human beings that love themselves enough to a point where they're not triggered by others, who can express compassion towards others without it feeling like it's taking away from them. The world needs some good, strong people,
Mhm.
so that there's less war, so that there's less ego, that kind of stuff, right? And so the reason I would want to have a child is only if I can add to the equation of 8 billion people one human being or two human beings that could raise the vibration of the consciousness, like the happy, they're
Mhm.
touch with, they're healthy, and being in service, and through that elevating union, and that is a simple thing, but a very difficult thing to achieve, because I, for one, have to be the type of person or parent that creates an environment for that to happen, where I'm not feeling triggered, where I'm encouraging, where I have the resources to educate, to whatever the case is, however way you want to educate them.
Yeah.
So that's my reason. It's not for a cute
Mhm.
Christmas card photo. It's not to, be like, oh, cutie. It's not to see an image of myself in a child. It's not to live vicariously through my child. It's not for any of those things, because I live like a child myself, I see the world as a child myself. So for me, it's that. And if I
Mhm.
can't do that, if I can't figure out a way where I'm not going to my phone the first thing in the morning, and I know that the world needs less people to do that, as a simple example, then pause. I need to reevaluate and work on myself, you know. um, but if I'm going to be irritable and annoyed and less not patient, but I want kids, like, I think it's
Mhm.
important to ask that question.
I hear you. And thank you for sharing that, man. For being open and vulnerable with that. I know it's not necessarily easy to share. I would love to share mine. I'm totally open to sharing mine. And I want to be incredibly transparent about this. And I want to start off by saying, Dad, I love you, and I'm so glad that our relationship is where it's at now. I think that a lot of what was driving me before was a lot of feelings of hurt and anger and misdirected fill in the blank. And I think that over time my reasons have changed, and I appreciate you, Dad. So I share that before I say what I'm about to say. So initially, I think that when I thought about being a parent, I wanted to do it from the perspective of, like, I think I just wanted to give that kid, like, kind of like what I referenced earlier, everything that I felt I didn't receive. And it wasn't from a gracious place. It was really from a F you everybody place. Like,
Mm.
it was really from there. That's straight up. And a lot of that is being a young person who's trying to understand and make sense of their life. Like, I grew up from a split home, all that kind of thing, didn't have dad in the picture, all these kind of things, right? So they play on you, right? At different points, right? So you have a lot of unresolved things, right? So, as I've gone through our ups and downs and we've healed from different things and stuff like that, it became less about that. I was at one point, like, I really didn't think I wanted kids. Like, I thought, like, my lineage was going to stop with me. You know what I mean? And I was like, I don't know, is that the best thing? Because, like, when I looked around at the family, it's like none of these people, most of these people are not necessarily putting into action good habits, thought patterns, all these kind of things that are going to support a quality, effective nurturing of my child. So
Mm.
I'm really signing up to do this as a tandem project with my partner. Like, I'm not
Mm.
necessarily looking to outside support beyond that, because I understand that we live differently, and I'm not going to compromise my standards for anybody else, right?
Mm.
And so it evolved, and I was with somebody dating, like, way back, and I had no idea, but they were trying to get pregnant. And their hope was that when they were able to share that they were, that's what would transform me into a man.
Whoa.
And because I was too nice. So I think that combination of those two major things really led to me being like, I don't even know if I want to be a dad. Right. And I kept going back and forth on it.
Mm.
And even to this day, it's like, you know what? I see myself as being able to show up in service to my community and the kids in the community, all these kind of things, other ways that I'm able to um, really impact children's lives in a different way. So I no longer necessarily hold on to it from the perspective of I need to give this love solely as a dad, right? I see the value of being that community elder, being that proverbial uncle, right?
Mm.
Playing those different roles. It doesn't need to necessarily be dad with an offspring that is the result of my sperm and her egg. Like, it doesn't
Mm.
need to be that for me anymore, right? But I had to explore all these things. I had to observe my surroundings. I had to see the life path that seems to play out after these folks get pregnant and have their kids, and, like, what their actual attitude and energy toward life seems to be. And it's like, I'll be honest, guys, I don't really want what you're showing me here.
Wow.
So that's my vulnerable truth.
Thank you for that, bro. Thank you for trusting this space to share such vulnerable truth. And yeah, there's so much wisdom there, man. May that share invite people to really look within, like how much of this decision is because of what you need to, what you, I, we need to look at and fix. Having a child is not a mechanism or medium of fixing anything. It shouldn't be anyway, right? And so thank you for sharing that. And man, whatever is in your future, brother, I just know you're a stand up human being and you're going to be an incredible example to any way you choose to nurture a younger soul, or even older soul. There's so many ways of being a parent. That's the other thing that comes up in this day and age, is that there are so many ways of being a parent. You don't have to have a biological offspring. That's the other thing. Wow, that's a big one. Let's not be in competition with each other, let alone our children.
Man,
Let us all work towards supporting each other and work on self-love, so that the bliss and joy of another being makes us happy, as opposed to
mhm,
jealous or anything like that.
definitely. And I would love, as we close out this episode, I'd love to pose a question that I think, our viewers can take as a question that they ask themselves. Maybe they journal it, maybe they just sit with it. You know what I mean? It's like kind of just thinking, what success as a parent means to you,
Mm,
right?
mm,
And, maybe a follow-up question to that is, am I willing to be redirected in the event that I haven't been guiding my child or offspring in the direction that I thought I was?
mm.
Right? Because we need
Yeah,
we need to invite in feedback as well, right? But we can't just invite in feedback and have walls up. We need to be ready to receive this feedback. So if you're truly not ready to receive it, do not ask for it, because that
yeah.
sets up a very unfair type of scenario for that individual who felt safe in that moment to communicate their feelings, and now all of a
Mhm.
sudden it's not safe.
Yes, so prompting our audience to maybe in the comments share answers to those two questions. You want to summarize those questions again, brother?
Um, what would success to them as a parent mean? So having some actual tangibles, not like my
Yeah,
child is happy, my whatever. Like be specific. Irritatingly
yeah,
specific is what we
yeah,
preach quite regularly here,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
And my second follow up there, what
Are
did
you
I share?
open? Are
Yes.
you open to, yeah? How
Are you
open are
open to
you to,
receiving, basically feedback? Be a
yeah,
good, maybe you don't feel all that great about it, but receiving feedback.
yeah.
I think we need to actually give permission for those gates to open, right?
Mm-hmm.
And this is where
Mm,
discernment kicks in and is high value. But you need to work on discernment. It doesn't just fall from the sky. You're not just born with it, right? This
mm-hmm.
is where we can actually hear, right? And
Mm,
listen to what is being shared, but not everything holds value. And
mm.
that's where discernment
Love
comes
it.
in.
Yeah, love it, love it. I think that's if you're feeling complete, a good way to wrap and prompt our audience to sort of share their thoughts on it all. This is a really big subject, as you said, a big topic. What's more important than the future of our consciousness and humanity? And children are being affected in a major way. And so I think it's a good responsibility for us to look at ourselves and ask the why. You know.
Agreed. Agreed. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, so thank you to everyone who's tuned in for this one. We would love to hear your feedback. We know that, we explore some things, from not being fathers. We talk about fatherhood and parenthood quite a bit,
We do.
and it's not something that I've personally seen happen. It's kind of like you need that, that to get into the membership club, and then you're good to go and speak on it. But I think there's value in hearing alternative opinions as well. So,
I
thank you for
agree.
everyone who has tuned in. You've given your faith and time to us to really embark on this journey with us as we explore it. We
Yeah.
welcome and invite in all feedback, comments, questions, things you want us to expand on, because these are uncharted territories when it comes to these conversations we're having. So,
Mhm.
we need to steer it in the direction we want it to go. So, give us that feedback. Your opinion matters, right? You tuning in, that lights us up. We would do this if it was just us, but yes, you tuning in lights us up. So we want to know what you want to tune in for more of in the future. And, with that, Vijay, I'd love to invite you to share with everyone who's listening how they can connect with you, which platforms and things like that, what service offerings they might really find a lot of value in connecting with you on as well.
Absolutely. So I always share this. My language of love is really trying to blend science and spirituality together. I think we're at a interesting time in human evolution where these two things are really merging, and we're trying to ask the questions. We always have been, but we're really, with the internet, with AI, all of these things coming up. I think there's a lot of talk about what is purpose, why are we here, what is suffering. So you can reach out to me. I offer one-on-one holistic coaching where I try and work with you and answer these types of questions. These are also types of things that in my workshops that I host in person and or online, we talk about. Something I'm very passionate about is a retreat called the Heart Medicine Journey, which my business partner Stephanie and I offer in Guatemala every year in Lake Atitlan. It's a magical 1 week experience. It's very transformative. It's where you and I met, Josh. Um, and in addition to that, I'm really excited about the kirtan and song ceremony offerings that we offer here in Toronto. When I say we, I mean a little band that we have, and we're actually changing the name of our band, and I'll announce that in a future episode. But we're really excited about that here in Toronto in person, but also coming through live broadcasts. So stay tuned. You can reach and connect with me at the Instagram handle Let's Meet at Balasana. Balasana is Sanskrit for child's pose. So let's meet at Balasana. It's going to be tagged in somewhere in the captions of this post. So that's me. What about you, Josh?
Awesome. Thank you for that. And everyone, highly recommend connecting with VJ on all of his offerings. When I lived in Toronto, I actually lived on the other side of the lake that VJ lives on. So,
That's
had I still been there, I would have been making the drive to experience all of these workshops and sound experiences, everything you have to offer, man. So, highly recommend VJ's services as well as that retreat. If you take a look at that retreat that him and Steph are offering next year, you might see some elements that you may have experienced somewhere else, right? But what I can tell you is that they hold space beautifully in a one-of-one kind of way and setting. So all of these things will, in all likelihood, be their own unique experience with them, even if you count yourself as, say, a veteran of having done some of the things that are on the itinerary. So I encourage you have a conversation with them at the very least. Don't just gloss over it if you recognize some things that you've perhaps done in the past. This is one thing you do not want to miss out on, and there's a reason that it gets sold out so fast. So don't let yourself miss out on it. It's an investment you would really kick yourself to not make.
Thank you, brother. Thank you very much. Great
Absolutely.
endorsement. What about you, my man?
So for those looking to connect and work with me, something that we can do together is self-mastery consulting. All right. Now, self-mastery consulting is all about leadership, and it starts within ourselves, right? The way I've seen it is in being in so many different work environments, different spaces that I've held in the world. I see that leadership isn't all that equipped to actually succeed and help those around us succeed. And a reason for that is because we often focus outside of ourselves first. So I really bring it inward. We really focus on the vulnerabilities that you might have. And there's really nothing that's off the table, right? We could talk about all things from relationships, communication, fitness. We can talk about a journey to veganism if you're interested in exploring that. We can talk about a journey to sobriety, which I've done. So there's so many different things. I encourage you to just check out my profile. You can get a better vibe for who I am, what I'm all about. And so you can connect with me for that. We also do tarot reading. You can follow me at the Self Mastery Consultant. That's on Instagram as well as on YouTube. I have a channel over there. And you can look me up, Joshua Jaipal, on LinkedIn and Facebook as well. I'm always doing a variety of things on all the platforms. And something that's really called to me in the last little while is workshops, especially related to healthy masculinity and how we can actually show up as better men and leaders in the world. So I've had great opportunities to do that. And that's something I really want to expand on. So if you yourself are looking for a facilitator or know some people who are, I would greatly appreciate that connection, because I think the more of us that get to actually be together and share our medicine, the more the world's actually going to start to look the way we all are hoping for it to look. So, Healing in Color .life is our website. Healing in Color is also a handle that you can follow on Instagram. That's our wellness space.
Love it, brother. You're such a great leader. And a question that I have for you and related to the subject matter we had. Would you be available for a family who might want to just check in with you and say, hey, listen, I watched this episode. I'm going through some issues, feeling triggered, blah, blah, blah. Would you be interested or available for, for that kind of a conversation?
I would, but you know what? Something that I think would be one step ahead, one step further to really make sure that there's alignment and a comprehensive amount of support available for say this family, for example, is to connect with us through a discovery call, and through the link in our bio. You can actually see how to book one of those. Those are free. And that's really chatting with us around what services we offer. Now, Healing in Color is not just myself. That is something that I do with my partner, Suki. And so she is a counselor. She's a Reiki master, sound
And
healer.
just generally an amazing human being. Yes.
Absolutely. no degrees for that one yet, but yes. But yeah, so she comes with a whole ton of experience having worked in residential settings, private practice, working in the school system for over a decade, supporting kids as child and youth care workers. So she has a very comprehensive and ever expanding suite of skills that I believe, together or even solo, we would be able to support. So that's a beautiful thing about working as a husband and wife in our wellness space, right? We can really tap into one another's gifts, support one another in family type settings. That's something that we have done at our space out in Innisfil before. And so, if there is something that you need support on, what I can say is there's no harm in sending a message and being like, hey, this is kind of what's going on. What do you think might help? And then we can either start to talk about what is available. We can set up some discovery calls, really just start to explore it. Right? We don't want you to feel intimidated. It's a safe space. We're just talking. We're humans trying to navigate this thing called life. All right. So we hope that you feel a calling to actually connect with us, because part of us being in this space is representation. It's wanting people who look like us to see other faces who look like them. So they start to actually embrace these spaces and actually get to that healing. So more of us can actually live in that place of loving the life that we're living in real time.
Yeah, everybody, I highly recommend you working with Joshua and Suki, and or individually with each of them. Yeah, brother, you're just like I've said this to you in private calls as well. You're just an amazing example of what a man can be and look like. So I thank you so much for that. And we need it. We need it. The masculine definitely needs it. So thank you, brother.
Thank you. Appreciate that, man. So, I think this has been a fantastic conversation. As always, I
Yeah.
got a whole ton out of it, man. To everyone who tuned in, we really appreciate you. Once again, we want to know what you loved and what you learned in the comments. So let us know. Send us a message if you like. We love voice notes as well. So, if you want to connect on a little bit more of a deeper level, we're open to that as well. So, VJ, did you want to close us out for this episode?
Yeah, I just thank everybody. We love you all. More love, more compassion, talk amongst each other. Try your best to leave the ego outside. There's so much growth to happen that can happen with that place. So, and tune into our next episode.
Sounds good. All right, everyone. Until next time. Thank you, brother.
All
Love
right.
you.
Love you.